This is a small excerpt of the entire Contact Report 427 translation. An important message for the listener of this document. We, Dyson, Devine and Vivienne Legg of www.gaiaguys.net, have been given permission by Billy Meyer, www.figu.org, to make these unofficial, preliminary translations of FIGU material. Please be advised that our translations may contain errors.
That would be senseless because, if the responsible ones do not react to the official warning which they will receive, your efforts would also be senseless. Besides, you would only be ridiculed, as is usual on the earth with all governments and other responsible ones, which already proved itself, and always again has repeatedly, since that time in the 50s, and also in the 70s, and so forth, of the last century, when you sent your warning texts to thousands of responsible ones of the governments, newspapers, radio stations and universities, and so forth. Your efforts would really be senseless, therefore in the future you should abstain from such things, because they bring no good fruit. The earth humans would rather hear false prophets and sect gurus, and thereby would rather make allowances for damage, woe, pain, destruction and sorrow, than to hear the wise words of a true announcer of the truth.
Unfortunately, you're right. Still, that is really not so easy to alter. Also seen in regard to the war in Lebanon by Hezbollah and the Israelis. That multinational troop, fighting for peace, according to Hanok's scheme, will be finally stood on its legs, through which real peace could be created on earth, likewise still remains a great dream in the meantime. Humanity must finally become intelligent and therefore allow understanding and reason to prevail in order to dismiss the false governments and bring such humans to the pinnacle who work for true peace and for the people. It is namely not done with the idiotic conferences of state powers who lead a great snout in regard to peace and the fighting of terrorism and for the well-being of humanity, because fundamentally it is these themselves who plot terror, death, destruction and ruin on the earth and spread it worldwide. The powerful only exercise their power, live after their desires and crazy ideas, on which they satisfy themselves, and indeed it's all the same whether, thereby, millions of humans lose their worldly possessions or even their lives. The great mass of all peoples is unfortunately, however, stupid and of only meager intelligence, because they would rather pray religiously, full of devotion, fanatically and full of expectation to their imaginary gods, who can, however, bring them no help, because these do not even exist. The great mass of humans of the earth will simply not comprehend that there is no God the Father, no heavenly gods, no angels and no saints who determine and decide over the well-being and sorrows, as well as over the being and not being, of the individual and the entire humanity. It will not be grasped that it is the human himself as an individual and as the entire humanity who determines and brings about his fate in every iota, and that subsequently only he, entirely alone, can and must bring himself every necessary help. That is so because the human himself, and quite alone, without some such Godhead, angel and saint, and so forth, creates his thoughts and feelings in himself and from that carries out his behavior. Subsequently he himself is responsible in every regard for each and everything in every relationship, and therefore, also, he himself determines his fate, and indeed in regard to the individual humans as well as to the entire humanity. Were the human of the earth finally to break loose from his religious and sectarian delusional belief and turn himself towards the named truth of self-responsibility for all things, then he would proportionally quickly turn to the better. The tyrannical and irresponsible state powers would be bumped from their thrones and replaced by powers, which would work only for the well-being of the humans, and therewith also for peace, and indeed according to the will of all those humans and peoples, who demand peace and are willing to build up their intelligence in order to let reason and understanding prevail all around. Unfortunately it is, however, presently still so, that, with the great mass of humans of the earth, the intelligence is still stuck in children's shoes, and indeed this includes all who function as state powers and bring harm, death, ruin, destruction, war and terror over humanity. But they all think, the peoples, as also the state powers and their vassals, that their intelligence is greatly developed and that they do not have more to learn regarding this. Subsequently they would do the correct thing in accord with understanding and reason, which however does not in the least correspond to the truth, because truthfully they are abyss deep without intelligence and thereby, thus without valuable reason and without effective understanding. Unfortunately only a few humans with real evolutional, valuable intelligence, respectively, with pronounced understanding and corresponding reason, let themselves be found on the earth, yet they are those who make the effort, in order for the humans of the earth, progressing in consciousness, learn what love, peace, wisdom, freedom and harmony is. And since unfortunately in this regard there are only a few, it will still long continue, before everything evil alters and a transformation comes about for the better. Yet every individual of all these few humans must daily make the effort to live as a model for all others, because only through that example of the correct way of life, according to the creational measure of the laws, as well as through the necessary discussions, thoughts, feelings and behavior, and through the written words of instruction, is it possible that the humans of the earth build up their intelligence, respectively, their understanding and their reason. Only through the ceaseless instruction in regard to the truth through the few truly knowing and intelligent ones, could an alteration to the better come to pass, and indeed also then if only one iota of truth remains hanging in the world of thought of the still unintelligent ones. If, namely, the iota and iota line up together, then something forms from out of it, which constantly becomes bigger and more extensive and subsequently also spreads itself, becomes more powerful and ultimately forms a factor which cannot be overlooked, which can no more be left out of attention.
Actually that is so. Still, as long as the peoples of the earth do not themselves become powerful in real intelligence, they will vote for bloodthirsty and might-greedy governments, pay homage to them, and themselves be of the same criminal attitude as these. Unfortunately, the few reasonable ones can accomplish nothing against the mass of irrational ones and those who are slaves to the might-greedy ones, because they are still too few. Intelligence, namely therefore reason and understanding, must first be diligently worked up by the great mass of all the peoples, and first then it will be possible that then finally rational behavior will occur and the power-greedy will be brought to reason. Until then, however, very much time passes. That also means that a multinational peacekeeping troop still has to wait a very long time.
Yes, that will unfortunately be so. Also no authoritative person will report to me to whom I can explain the significance, the construction and the function, as well as the ins and outs of a multinational troop which fights for peace.
That will indeed be so,